There is a quiet moment that almost everyone experiences at some point in life. It usually arrives without warning, perhaps during a conversation, perhaps in a meeting, perhaps while scrolling through endless opinions online. You hear someone speak with absolute certainty about something that is clearly wrong, clearly shallow, clearly uninformed, and yet they speak with the confidence of a prophet. At first you try to explain, you try to correct them gently, maybe even kindly. You present facts, logic, evidence, but something strange happens. The more clearly you explain, the less they seem to understand. And soon the conversation begins to feel like shouting into an empty canyon. Your words echo back, but nothing reaches the other side. This moment, strange as it feels, is not new. More than 2 centuries ago, a deeply cynical yet brutally honest philosopher observed the exact same phenomenon. His name was Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer believed that one of the most exhausting experiences an intelligent person can have is not poverty, not failure, not loneliness, but the constant need to deal with stupidity. Not simple ignorance, not lack of education, but a stubborn, confident kind of stupidity that refuses to listen. And according to Schopenhauer, the greatest mistake intelligent people make is believing they can reason with it. Because stupidity, he argued, is not merely the absence of knowledge. It is the absence of the ability to recognize truth, even when it stands directly in front of you. Imagine for a moment a traveler walking through a dense fog. The fog is so thick that he cannot see more than a few feet ahead. Now imagine someone outside the fog trying to guide him. Turn left, they say. There is a cliff ahead, but the traveler laughs, because from where he stands, there is no cliff. There is only fog. This, Schopenhauer believed, is exactly what happens when intelligence meets stubborn foolishness. The intelligent person sees patterns, consequences, contradictions, but the foolish person sees none of it. Their mind is wrapped in a fog so dense that reason cannot penetrate it. And yet here is the strange paradox of life. Stupid people rarely know they are stupid. In fact, they often believe the opposite. They speak loudly. They argue passionately. They dismiss complexity with simple answers and mock anyone who questions them. Meanwhile, the intelligent person, the one who actually understands the limits of knowledge, often speaks cautiously, even hesitantly. Schopenhauer once observed that the more intelligent a person becomes, the more they begin to notice how much they do not know. But the fool experiences the opposite illusion. The less they understand, the more certain they feel. If this sounds familiar, it is because this pattern exists everywhere. In workplaces where the loudest voice dominates the room, in political debates where nuance is treated like weakness, in everyday conversations where someone would rather win an argument than discover the truth. For intelligent people, this creates a strange kind of suffering, because their instinct tells them to explain, to clarify, to improve the situation. But Schopenhauer believed this instinct is often a trap. One of the first painful lessons intelligent people must learn, he said, is that not every mind is capable of understanding. And the moment you realize this, something inside you changes. You stop trying to educate every person who disagrees with you. You stop trying to correct every absurd statement you hear. You begin to conserve your energy. This is not arrogance, it is survival. Because arguing with someone who cannot think clearly is like trying to teach algebra to a thunderstorm. No matter how carefully you explain the equation, the storm will continue to rage. Schopenhauer described this with ruthless clarity. He said that the biggest danger of dealing with foolish people is not that they are wrong. It is that they pull intelligent people into endless, exhausting debates where logic slowly loses its power. And over time, something subtle happens. The intelligent person becomes frustrated, angry, even bitter, not because they were defeated, but because they were forced to wrestle with a mind that refuses to play by the rules of reason. This is why Schopenhauer believed that true intelligence reveals itself not through argument, but through restraint. The intelligent person learns when silence is more powerful than explanation. Imagine two men standing in a crowded marketplace. One of them begins shouting absurd claims about the world. He speaks loudly, confidently, waving his arms as people gather around him. The other man listens quietly. At first, the crowd expects a debate. They wait for the quiet man to challenge him, to dismantle his arguments piece by piece, but he does not. Instead, he smiles faintly and walks away. To many people in the crowd, this may look like surrender, but to the intelligent observer, it is something else entirely. It is the recognition that some battles are beneath your dignity. Schopenhauer believed that one of the clearest signs of intelligence is the ability to tolerate stupidity without becoming infected by it. Because stupidity is contagious. Spend enough time arguing with fools and eventually you begin to resemble them. Your tone becomes harsher. Your patience evaporates. Your mind becomes trapped in their small battlefield. And the truth, the larger truth, disappears. This is why many of the greatest thinkers in history preferred solitude. They were not antisocial by nature. They simply understood something most people do not. Peace of mind is far more valuable than winning arguments. Schopenhauer himself lived much of his life in quiet isolation, walking alone through European streets, observing humanity from a distance, like a man watching waves crash endlessly against the shore. He saw something tragic in human nature, a deep, almost stubborn resistance to self-reflection. Most people, he believed, do not want truth. They want confirmation. They want reassurance that their beliefs are correct, their opinions superior, their understanding complete. And when intelligent people challenge those illusions, the response is rarely gratitude. It is hostility, because confronting ignorance feels like an attack on identity. So what then is the intelligent person supposed to do? Withdraw from society entirely? Remain silent forever? Not exactly. Schopenhauer did not argue for total withdrawal. Instead, he suggested something more subtle, a quiet mastery of social distance. Intelligent people learn to choose their conversations carefully. They learn to recognize the difference between curiosity and stubbornness, between a mind that seeks truth and a mind that only seeks victory. With the first kind of person, conversation becomes exhilarating. Ideas move like sparks between two minds, illuminating new perspectives. But with the second type, conversation becomes a battlefield, and battlefields are exhausting places to live. The intelligent person learns to save their energy for the rare moments when it truly matters, because wisdom is not about speaking constantly. It is about knowing when speaking will actually change something. This principle appears again and again in the quiet habits of thoughtful people. They listen more than they speak. They observe before they judge. They understand that every argument has a hidden cost, a cost measured not only in time, but in mental clarity. Imagine carrying a bucket of water across a desert. Every drop matters. Now imagine someone asking you to pour that water into the sand just to prove a point. Most people do exactly that with their mental energy. They argue online for hours with strangers who have no intention of changing their minds. They try to educate people who take pride in misunderstanding them. They pour water into sand and then wonder why they feel exhausted. Schopenhauer believed intelligent people eventually recognize this pattern and step away from it, not because they believe themselves superior, but because they understand a quiet truth about human nature. You cannot awaken someone who is pretending to sleep. And perhaps the most surprising part of Schopenhauer's philosophy is this. He believed that intelligent people must also learn to laugh at stupidity, not with cruelty, but with a kind of gentle amusement. Because once you truly understand how limited human perception can be, many arguments begin to look strangely theatrical. Two people shouting past each other, both convinced they possess absolute truth. It becomes almost comical, like watching two blindfolded men arguing about the color of the sky. The intelligent observer steps back and realizes something liberating. Not every opinion deserves a response, not every accusation deserves a defense, and not every person deserves access to your mental peace. This realization is not bitterness, it is freedom. The freedom to invest your attention where it actually matters, in meaningful conversations, in creative work, in personal growth, in relationships with people who genuinely seek understanding. Schopenhauer believed that one of the highest forms of intelligence is the ability to protect your inner world from unnecessary chaos. Because the world is already loud enough. Every day we are surrounded by opinions, arguments, noise, outrage, certainty. If you respond to every one of them, your mind becomes a battlefield. But if you choose carefully, if you reserve your attention only for the conversations that truly matter, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your thoughts become clearer. Your patience deepens. Your words carry more weight because you use them sparingly. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to understand people in a deeper way. Because once you stop arguing with fools, you gain the distance needed to observe them. You notice patterns. You notice how ego hides behind confidence. How insecurity disguises itself as aggression. How fear often speaks louder than ignorance. This understanding does not make you cynical. It makes you calm. Because when you understand human behavior, you stop taking it personally. The loud opinions of foolish people become background noise, like wind rattling a window, present but no longer disturbing. Schopenhauer once suggested that intelligence is not measured by how much a person knows. It is measured by how much unnecessary conflict they avoid. And perhaps that is the quiet wisdom hidden beneath all of this. The intelligent person does not win every argument. The intelligent person avoids the arguments that were never worth winning. They protect their attention like a rare and fragile resource. They walk away from chaos without apology, and in doing so, they achieve something far more valuable than victory. They achieve peace. Because in the end, the greatest triumph of intelligence is not proving others wrong. It is preserving the clarity of your own mind in a world that constantly tries to drag it into noise. And once you truly understand this, dealing with foolish people stops feeling like a battle. It simply becomes another part of observing the strange, complicated theater of human nature.